Okay, let's talk about the new arrow syntax, which is really cool. So I'll give you an example. Let's say you have some kind of collection of tasks, whatever the task might be. And we'll say when you initialize this class, you're going to pass in an array of tasks, and we'll default to an empty array. All right? Next, maybe you have a little log method that will just cycle through each of those tasks and log something to the console. All right, well, you could say this.tasks.for each one. I'm going to use the old function keyword here, and then I will console.log the task. Okay, so let's try it. I'm going to new up a task collection. I'm going to feed it 3 new tasks, so we'll need to create that in a minute. And then finally, I'm going to call log. Okay, so right now we're getting a reference error, but only because you don't yet have a class called task. Now we do, and all that works. Great. So what about this arrow syntax? Well, take a look. This function keyword can be removed entirely, and we can replace it with the arrow, like so. So if I save that, we get the exact same thing. But further, in this case, we only have one argument, so if that's the case, I could even omit the parentheses as well. If I save it, we get the same thing. And then finally, in this case, we're just doing one action, so we're not going to have multiple lines worth of logic. That means I could put all of this on its own line, like so. And once again, if I save it, we get the exact same thing. So how cool is that? It can really simplify and clean up your code. And now look, if you're anything like me, when I first saw this, I kind of thought, well, I'm not sure if I like that because it's not entirely clear that I am calling a function, and I don't really understand how this works. I think everyone has that reaction, but you got to give it 5 minutes, right? Now I don't even think about it. But initially, yeah, I did think, no, I prefer the old way, but I've come around all the way to the other side since then. So yeah, you got to give it a couple minutes to become muscle memory. But then I think you'll like it. Okay, so how does this work? Like, what if I wanted the index as well and I was going to log that? Well, that's not going to work. So here's the rule. The parentheses, if you want, can be there no matter what. So if you want to follow a convention that every function argument is surrounded by parentheses, that would be fine and it would always work. So take a look. If I have multiple, I need the parentheses. If I have a single one, I can use the parenthesis like this. Or I can optionally omit them, once again, only if there's a single argument. But now what if there's no arguments? Maybe I'm just logging the string task. Well, in that case, you can't just delete it entirely. You do need an empty set of parentheses there. So once again, just something you need to learn. My general approach is exactly what I said to you. If I have a single argument, then I won't use parentheses. Otherwise, I always do because I have to. Next, I only use this single inline approach if I'm just doing something very, very simple. Otherwise, I will add the curly braces on and put this on its own line. So imagine you had something like this where you wanted to prepare it, and then here, maybe you have a method, for example, with Laravel Elixir, I have a method called toGulp, and that basically creates the gulp task based upon the properties on the instance. You don't need to know about any of that, but we'll just say console.logging, converting to gulp. Okay, so maybe you want to say, filter through all the items in the array and prepare them or convert them for gulp. All right, well now I could say this.tasks.forEach task call task.toGulp. Nice and clean there, right? So if we run it, we get exactly what you would think. Now, this is all great, but there is one thing you should consider. The value of the this keyword is handled differently. So for example, let's do this. For each task, I'm going to console.log this. Now, here's what I want you to note. In this case, the this keyword refers to, as we would kind of naturally expect, the task collection instance. But now, do you think that's how it worked before, using the function keyword? Let's see. Function, save it, and no, we get undefined. Now, here's the deal. In this case, we do have strict mode automatically enabled. So what we see here is what you would expect. However, you also might be used to seeing the global window object. So for example, if I just had a single function like this, yeah, this would refer to the window object, which can cause all kinds of weirdness if you forget what this refers to, and it ends up being just a big pain in the butt, honestly. You're always having to keep track of what it refers to. Anyways, here's the main point I'm trying to make. You can't, if you want to upgrade to ECMAScript 6, you can't just do a search and replace in your project and just convert all of these function keywords like so. And that's because, once again, the value of this will change. So you absolutely need to be aware of that, otherwise your code is going to break. So, well, that begs the question, like, how does this work? What is this bound to when you're using the arrow syntax? And the answer is, well, with the function keyword, we know that it changes, right? It then refers to usually the window object. However, with the arrow syntax, that binding, it never changes. It doesn't do anything whatsoever. So this is going to refer to exactly what it referred to out here. It doesn't change anything. That's the important thing to understand. With function task, it changes. With the arrow syntax, it doesn't change at all. All right, I hope that makes sense. Finally, one last little thing for this lesson. If you do choose to use the inline version, where it's all on a single line, great. Just keep in mind that the return keyword is implicit. So you don't have to do anything like that. It will automatically happen. For example, if I had, in a new example, if I had Taylor, Jeffrey, Adam, Matt, and we just wanted to filter through them or map over them, yeah, the old way would be names.map, and then for each one, we'll say return name plus equals is cool. Very mature. Okay, so if we reassign that, and I console.log that, sure enough, we get the modified array, right? But now, with our new syntax, I could remove the function keyword, and then replace it with an arrow. Next, I only have a single argument here, so the parentheses are optional. And then finally, I can put this all on its own line with the understanding that the return keyword is implicit, so I could remove that as well. And if I save it and reload, I still get the exact same thing. Much, much cleaner stuff. And then finally, by the way, if you're going crazy over this, yes, there are template strings. You could do something like this. I just don't want to overwhelm you with all this new stuff too quickly, so we will dedicate a full lesson to template strings in the near future.